All right, Holly, we're going to start off with what I call the easiest question, the only scripted question, then we'll see where it goes. And I'm going to put a caveat on here because I was looking at your LinkedIn. I was like, this is exactly the type of story that I love, because there had to have been some trigger that made you decide to go into franchising. But what's your franchise backstory? How did you accidentally fall into franchising?
Yeah. So my background is in therapy. Graduated as an occupational therapist, and I worked in therapy for 29 years. But my whole entire career was post-acute care and with seniors. So seniors have always been my passion. My very first job out of school, I went to work at the VA hospital in Chillicothe, Ohio. So veterans are also very near and dear to my heart. So moved along, working through the therapy, staff therapist, rehab manager, regional manager, and then I was vice president of operations for a pretty large therapy company. During COVID, there was obviously lots of stressors and strains, and this kind of makes you think, am I in the right place? And then because of COVID and many of the outpatient therapy clinics were shut down because of social distancing, and seniors particularly were really afraid to go back out and be in the community if they were open. So the company that I was working for at the time, we started working on in-home Part B therapy. So that is like their Medicare secondary payer would pay for services in the home. So my counterpart and I at work worked on developing the program. And then as we were able to get back out, we started marketing our in-home Part B program. And I was aware of in-home therapy, private duty, with what Right at Home does. We had a competitor for my grandparents for almost 3 years, and we immediately, the family saw the value of the caregivers in the home to give us a break as the family members and still provide consistency for my grandparents. So as we were marketing, I started marketing to home care companies. I thought, who better their goal is to keep the clients in the home as long as possible, and the clients want to stay there. So how can we bring therapy to them because they're not comfortable going out to therapy? So as I started speaking with them and started kind of checking around, and I was I guess I was kind of burnt out on therapy. As far as the day in and the day out. So I went home and I said to my husband, I'm like, what do you think about me doing this? He's like, really? Both of our kids are graduated out of college on their own. And I said, I really would like to try this. So he said, give it a go. My counterpart that she and I worked on the program together, we were kind of talking like, what could we do? We started vetting some of the competitors, the one that we used for my grandparents, but we just really felt comfortable with Right at Home. I felt like our values, our ideals, the support that I was feeling, that I thought would be a really good fit. And they weren't like selling me. I felt like they were genuinely interested in me and what I could offer to seniors. So ironically, they had a territory open where my good friend lived and the territory that I bought. And we're like, okay, this has to be a sign. We purchased the territory in December of 21, and I opened my office in 2022 in March. It's just, like I said, it's always been a passion. Our family, we've been very fortunate to have many members of our family live well into their 90s. And so family and cohesiveness and support in the home has always been a huge value. And I did take it down because it did not look great on the wall behind me. But there's a picture that as I was starting the process, I get a little emotional. My grandma was really important to us. And give me a second.
You're good.
My daughter was applying to college and she was going into interior design, and she had to come up with different ideas for design. And she said one of them had to be photograph. And so we had a picture that we had my grandma's hand, my mom's hand, my hand, and my daughter's hand. It was 4 generations. And I thought, that's why I do this. So that was I was like, this is where I need to be. So that picture usually hangs behind me, but like I said, it didn't look good in the background. So I took it down. But, and then from there, it was just because of my background, I felt natural in going out and talking to, senior citizen centers and nursing homes and therapy companies. And I understood the post-acute process of, the difference between skilled home care and non-medical home care, and could be a real resource for hospice, for other skilled home care. And that's what I really, really enjoy about, besides being able to provide the care in the homes and help the seniors be able to stay in their homes. I can also be a really good resource and connection, even though it might not be somebody that needs me, they need other areas of the post-acute setting. And so that's what I'm super passionate about, is being able to support the clients, but also their families, just to give them a break, for them to be able to go enjoy their kids' high school football game or basketball game. I have one client that comes to mind, and he was taking care of his wife for 4 years, all by himself, severe Alzheimer's. And we started going there. And the very first time we went to the house to follow up with him after the first visit, he just broke down in tears. And he's like, you have no idea. That is the first time I've ever got to see one of my kids participate in their high school sports. So those are the reasons why it's just, I made the right decision, and I'm loving what I do.
Thank you for sharing that. I have a ton that I want to unpack from your opening statement. First,
and I'm sorry I got emotional.
No, that's what.
It's my mom. It's my mom's fault. That's what we always tell my mom. It's your fault we do this.
I would put that picture back up. What an impactful picture. I think, look, your backstory, and this is why I have so many follow-up questions. But you've given back to humans, and frankly, even the end there, even you getting emotional about what you went through with your own family. Like, the reality is everybody's going through that. I would not be emotionally strong enough to deal with what you're dealing with. Is you're helping so many human beings at the end stage of their lives find comfort and peace and happiness. And that'd be too much of an emotional tug on me. Like I can't deal with that.
Yeah.
So, but clearly, it can still affect you. It just did. Like, when you let it into your soul and you really think about it, it still affects you. How do you keep thick skin or this fake perception of being strong for others? Like, how do you hold on to that when you're just as human as everybody else?
Well, sometimes I think the emotion is good, that they know we care, but it's just, I was very well. There were 2 mentors that I had when I was going through therapy or working in therapy, and they were both very, very different personalities. And the one was super emotional, and the other one was much more business, cut and dried. Both phenomenal guys. But I learned so much from them. And I watched how, especially the guy who was so emotional as far as giving and caring and all of those things, I learned a lot just watching him be able to manage a company at the time. And how did he handle that? And how you can find my office manager and sometimes I'll call her and it's just like, why is this happening? And how are we going to deal with this? And this, this situation isn't good. But then I can step back and just like you're saying, unpack everything and say, okay, let's break it down. This is a tough situation. You've got to get through this. These things must be done. But at the same time, I always have to stop and think, why am I doing this? And why is this important? And it helps me be able to bounce back and, kind of bounce back and forth. And I try to keep the emotions inside, but sometimes it's just like with that. I'm so sorry. I wish I could have just
I'm glad that you did.
Can you cut that part out?
It's real, and it's almost like here's another statement. I wrote a column once, and I think about it often. It was called "Catch the Entrepreneur Before They Catch You," and really it was a message back to my old employer that said, I gave you everything. I just wanted you to give me a little back. Mm-hmm. And that I was here the whole time. Like I was going to go be an entrepreneur and I wanted to give that to you, but you had no interest in capturing what I offered. And what I just saw out of you, that emotional side is an X factor in business that I don't, for lack of better words, it's the give a shit that really stands out. And so for you to give, like, and a side note, for you to give that much of your career to other businesses, and for them to lose you, like no matter what, they lost you. You went in and created a business for yourself. Yeah. They didn't tap into what you just allowed to be exposed. And that's empathy and passion and care and give a shit. Right. That when that translates over to the customer, that's the X factor, in my opinion, that's the difference between good and great businesses, when there's a true human emotion behind it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, and that's part of, like, when I do get frustrated, as a business owner, there's always things that you got to deal with, but when I find myself frustrated, it's typically because I feel like I've let my client down. Maybe a caregiver for whatever reason was a no call, no show that day. And I get really upset. I realize that, I always say we're working with humans. We're not working with machines. We can't just stop the conveyor belt and say, okay, somebody didn't show up today, we'll redo it tomorrow. We always have to be in flux and fluid. And usually my frustrations are because I feel like I've let my clients down, and they're all very, very personal to me, that, they've chosen me and my company for a reason. And that's really the only time I get frustrated. Everything else I can deal with the day in, day out. This didn't come out right, or payroll messed up something, or, those kinds of things, that's the easy stuff. But the biggest and hardest thing for me is if I ever feel like my clients are let down. So, and I'll go out and do shifts. My office staff goes out and does shifts. I'm very blessed for the staff I have around me in my office and team. And we've been very, very fortunate to grow really quickly. From when I started, I did not do a resale. I was a brand new territory. And so started from ground zero, which was a little scary. But just super, super blessed that we were able to grow quickly and do well. We have been named every year. We opened in 22, in 23, 24, and 25. We've been named Employer of Choice, Provider of Choice. This year, we were recognized as a leader in experience. So those things the fact that we can achieve those milestones reinforce to me that you're where you're supposed to be and you made the right choice. And right at home support, like I look back now, because lots of people would have said to me, do you think you could have done this without a franchise? You pay your royalties and you pay your brand fund, and, why didn't you just do that on your own? And even now that I feel like I'm running fairly smooth, people ask me, new potential franchisees call me. In fact, one called me last night. I just had the conversation with him. And I said, I would not have done it any different. I just would not. The support that Right at Home provides, the resources that they have, my corporate coach that's been assigned to me, even though there's a lot of stuff I know, and I know I'm probably making the right decision, there's always somebody I can call and they pick up the phone and they help me talk through it and like, yeah, you're right. Or, hey, I know why you're thinking that, but have you thought about this side? And so I definitely feel like doing the franchise was a way better option than trying to do it on my own.
I have two comments on that. I have a question that I want to go back to, but let's just. I'm going to use fake numbers. $1 million sales, 10% royalty. That means $100,000 a year. And when you think of $100,000 a year, if you just took website and curriculum and hiring models, and that's it. Like you couldn't hire two people to do that all in house. And so I think in franchising, these royalty numbers are almost seen as a negative. But when you land with the right business that is going to build infrastructure around you, it's almost like it's a portion of like your employment budget more than anything.
Oh, and then, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, and then the other comment, and this relates. Did a podcast with a franchisee. He ended up buying it's like a wood or floor installation company, but he was a restaurant guy, and he always wanted to be in restaurants. Mm-hmm. And he went to these discovery days. And he just felt like the culture was all P&L. It wasn't like we actually care about you. And he said, I was done. And he completely shifted industries. And so I think about that because you talked about the culture match. And it's hard because in when someone's selling franchises, they're also selling you on why they're business. And so you gotta almost trust your gut. I say that the most important tools for a franchise buyer is your head, your heart, and your gut. Like that's where all your answers are. How did you sniff it out and know that this was right? Was there a moment where you said, okay, this makes sense? Obviously the territories were available, but was there a moment, like a singular moment where you said, okay, this is where I belong?
Well, I grew up not far from here. So, that made sense. But it was just when I spoke to the other possible franchises that I was looking at, I just kind of what you're saying. I didn't feel like they cared about me. They cared about what I could do and how quick can you build this and those types of things. So again, seniors have always been my passion. Like I knew I wanted to continue working with seniors. So it wasn't so much that I knew this was right for me as I knew right at home was right for me. And they never, I never got the impression that they were like, well, you got to be able to do this and this and this amount of, you got to be at 1 million and you got to be at 2 million. It was not that at all. So I think I knew before I ever chose Right at Home, I knew I was going to home care. Like I wasn't looking to be a restaurant owner, or I wasn't looking to be any other franchise or franchisee. I knew it had to be home care. Like that was non-negotiable, but Right at Home, when I spoke to the franchise development and I had the calls with them, I never doubted any piece of Right at Home. And that's where, so I guess that was my, you don't need to look any further. And then when the territory was open for me and my really good friend that we were going to go through the whole process together, it was like, okay, this is a sign. This is where we're supposed to be. We're good. So
love that.
It was,
You said, you gave the example of where emotionally you're struck when you can't deliver for a client. And you said the no call, no show. And I think about like, if I were going to buy a franchise in this space, that's probably my biggest fear because the asset of the caregiver is so vital.
Oh my gosh.
And I don't know that the industry as a whole has mastered how do you transition them from the hourly employee to a part of a culture. I mean, it obviously starts with how you operate the business.
Right.
And so in those scenarios, obviously you continue to learn, but how do you also apply your own guardrails knowing that you don't want to feel that way ever again? How do you apply those guardrails to the way that you hire people?
Yeah. So we definitely have, we have very specific interviewing questions. Sometimes we get it right. Sometimes we don't. Always willing to give someone a chance, but at the same time, make sure they know the expectations, because if they don't know the expectations, then, they're not going to fall in line, I guess, as far as this is what we want to do. We go over our mission statement in our orientations, the whole Right at Home's mission statement to improve the lives of those we serve. And that is our goal every single day. And so we ask very specific questions to try to vet out as much as we can. One thing, so kind of me being a crybaby like I am, we do a video that actually the CEO of the company has put together, Margaret Haynes, and we use a snippet of that. Welcome to your new career. This isn't just a job. This is a career. And we play that. It's maybe 3 or 4 minute video that we play. And my recruiter has gotten really good at, she'll watch the people's faces as they're watching that video. And if they are like me and, get emotional, or just the smile, if they're not paying attention, if they're on their phones or, whatever, we don't even need to move forward. So we try to do a lot of stuff in the beginning. And then we do some training, as far as like dementia care, if somebody really has a passion for that. But we always try to ask, we provide hospice care. Do we ask if they want, or if they're comfortable with hospice? Because as you're talking about guardrails, like it's not going to do us any good to put someone in a position that they're not comfortable with, because it's not going to be successful for them or for the client. So I think a lot of it is from the very beginning, what we have to start with, whether it be an office employee, whether it be a caregiver. We have to know what our expectation is and what our area of expertise, and stay in our lane. And then also know if we can't meet that need, who else can? Mm-hmm. And we can be that resource. So I think a lot of the guardrails that you're speaking of, it starts from the very beginning of the process with any employee and with our clients. We don't always have, every client's not the nicest or sweetest, or, sometimes there's some behaviors. And so we have to know what to expect and let everybody that's involved in that case know what to expect, and try to get the best out of each case.
Yeah, I have two comments for that. One is I think winning in business and career in everything comes down to expectation setting more than anything. So I'm completely aligned on that. And I also think about just how far this space has come. I remember my grandparents were put into, like literally put into facilities when they aged out of the ability for my parents or their siblings to take care of them. And so the world has changed drastically, that we're probably not there yet. I would imagine a higher majority of caregivers take jobs, but I bet you the percentage of those that build careers are increasing year over year. And so when we become seniors, the industry will continue to have grown, which is what this movement is. Like, as far as we've come, there's so much room to go, so that people just get back to caring for people, and you obviously get paid for it. But when we take care of our communities, like things that kind of have been lost in the shuffle, I see such a transformation that is happening too,
Right. Well, and I mean, obviously the statistics, the elderly population, we're living longer. There is much more of, and I learned this even when I in therapy, the push is for more services to be at home. I mean, some of the European countries are doing hospital at homes. We've done some trials here. We've got the in-home Part B therapy. We've got home health therapy. So many people want to stay in their own homes. And we're seeing the whole push is towards the home. And so if we can be any kind of a supplement or become a part of the family. I mean, some of my caregivers that I have truly are part of the family. And we experienced that same thing when we had a caregiver for my grandparents. I mean, literally, they were there for 3 years. And there's a couple, they would come, some of them would come and go. My grandma was not always the easiest to get along with. So, sometimes caregivers are like, I'm not going back there. But there were a couple. My grandmother passed away about almost 10 years ago. And we still stay in contact with her caregiver that was there with them. I mean, they truly do become part of a family.
Yeah.
And we had one caregiver that taught a 94-year-old to text. And because he wanted to be able to communicate with his grandkids. And then she helped him work on a memory book. But it was funny. She called in one day and she's like, I made a mistake, because we tell the caregivers, don't give them your personal numbers. They need to come through the office. She's like, I made a mistake. I gave him my phone number. And she said, it's completely innocent, but he'll text me at 2:30 in the morning and say, I just thought of something I want to put in the memory book. So, it is that. And then last week I got sent a text, and it's one of my veterans. He's in his late 90s. He was a chaplain in the military, and they had a service, and the caregiver helped him get out his chaplain uniform. Wow. And put it on so that he could go to a service they were doing. And he was just so proud. I mean, it's every week or every day I get something sent to me or talked about, or take a phone call of thank you so much, that just, it makes every day so worth it, no matter how bad the day is or how, something's just gone wrong or staffing. And then I can go back and look at those texts and like, you are exactly where you're supposed to be, and the impact that you're having. Even caregivers, my employees, we do employee appreciation things. We did a bowling, like picnic outing that they could bring their kids, and, just trying to have that family feel across the whole company, not just in our office or not just in the individual homes, but a whole culture within our little franchise. So.
Weird question, but part of your drive, like everything you're talking about is building a culture where it doesn't feel like it's a 9 to 5, that it feels right. Like you're impacting something that's much greater than what is right in front of you. Mm-hmm. Is your North Star that in the career that you built, you figured out what was missing, that you needed this component, and that's why you're like, is that leading you to build these things?
I think it's always, I'm pretty competitive. I'm never satisfied. So it's my North Star, I think, is just always kind of, always moving. What can I do better? I don't know that there's one thing that I'm striving for or trying to get there. I'm just trying to always evolve and improve. So I guess maybe not a North Star, but maybe a galaxy of stars that we can, impact and grow. And it's not so much about like growing, meaning, getting more territories, getting more clients, making more money. It's not that. It's growing the communities within what we can affect, whether it be, because I'm in multiple cities and I'm in rural farm country and I'm in inner city metro. So I do, in my territory, I have a very vast, array of people that we work with and work for and those types of things. So I don't know that there's just one. It's a galaxy, not a star.
So. All right. Last question. So when you went back to your husband and said, this is what I'm going to do. Yeah. What does he say about this now?
He knows that seniors have always been my passion, and he's very, very happy. I mean, there's days I come home and everybody, we all have these. We're like, why did I do what I did? But No, he knows that I am so much happier and I am so much more fulfilled, and I'm I'm very passionate, and I mean, I've been blessed. I've done well. I'm doing things that I never dreamed I could do. And my husband's he's actually a 3-time transplant recipient. And he drives and trains harness horses for a living. And he was in a really bad racing accident right as I was getting ready to do all of this. And so I was his caregiver, but he saw the impact firsthand of having somebody be able to be there and support. So he's super. It's kind of funny how he's not involved, because there's lots of husband-wife team franchisees in especially in Right at Home. And he's not. But I find that he is, now that he listens to me, and he'll even say something about, there's one client that she had a birthday party and they invited us to come to the birthday party. Well, now they're like buddies. And so every time I see her, she'll say, "How's Ryan?" Or if I say something to Ryan, he's like, "Well, how's she?" So it's kind of cool how even though he's not in the business, he's in the business. And he's he's very happy with what I'm doing, because I'm happy. What do they say? Happy wife, happy life. So.
Yeah, right. Well, what a wonderful story. I'm grateful that you're vulnerable.
I'm sorry.
No, I think it was fantastic. I think, look, I think there's a million ways to get into business for yourself. There's a million franchises. You can see it through your story. There's a million reasons why this made sense, and probably timing is everything. You probably had to go through your life experiences to be ready for this moment.
Yeah.
But clearly you're embracing it, and again, I'm grateful for this conversation. I told you at the beginning, completely unscripted. Don't know where it's going to go. And
it should have been scripted, and then I would have been able to.
No, it was good. I love it. I'm going to watch this one back. So Holly, thanks so much for doing this. This was awesome.
Thank you. Yep. I appreciate the opportunity to share my story and share being a franchisee. It's awesome.
I love it. For Holly and Mick, this was another episode of Meet the Z. Take care.